Thank you for tuning in to the GSMC Basketball Podcast presented by the GSMC Sports Network. I am your host, Nelson, and we're getting closer. We're getting around that time. NBA season's about to start in a few days, so can't wait for those games. WNBA playoffs are going to be happening tonight, later as well, 7:30 and 9:30. Those games are going to happen respectively, but that's not what we're going to talk about. Because right now it's not, at least for the WNBA, none of the teams are in an elimination game yet, so I'm not really going to focus on that as of right now. So what we are going to talk about, however, is Gonzaga recently just announced that they were joining the Pac-12, and I'm just going to go ahead and give the details on that and what to expect going into them joining the Pac-12. In the second segment, we are going to be talking about Kawhi Leonard. He just recently made some comments about losing Paul George, and he did make a, quote, solid statement about the Clippers and the situation that they're in. So I'm just going to go ahead and look at what Kawhi Leonard had to say about that. And then in the third segment, we're going to be looking at hot takes. So hot takes before the season actually starts in a couple of days, because I thought that would be a pretty fun thing to do. And then in the fourth segment, I'm going to be looking at an article where apparently D'Angelo Russell was taking shots at Darvin Ham. And by taking shots, I mean he wasn't speaking very highly about Darvin Ham. And I'm kind of curious to see what he had to say and give my opinions on that. We also have a special fifth segment at the end of the fourth segment, so be sure to stay tuned for that if you're interested to find out what that is. And before I begin, however, I do like to remind everybody that we love to hear what you guys have to say during the show, whether you guys have a hot take, a burning question, or something that you've just been dying to share. We are all ears. If you really want your comment or question to get noticed, then I recommend using Super Chat. You just click on the $ below the chat box, and then you can send in your comments and donations that way. Really helps the show. And if Super Chat's not really your thing, then that's totally fine. You can always go ahead and use the link displayed below the ticker on every single show segment, gsmcpodcast.net, and then you can send in your comments and or donations that way. Either or really helps the show. Doesn't matter which one you do. And with that out of the way, let's go ahead and talk about Gonzaga joining the Pac-12. The news literally broke 20 minutes ago while I was making my food. And so, the teams that are already in the Pac-12 are Boise State, Colorado State, Fresno State, San Diego State, and Utah State. So a lot of states in the Pac-12. And they've originally had 7 members, and the Pac-12 is a little bit more popular in football than it is in basketball. Their football programs are a much stronger force in the Pac-12, and not to mention Gonzaga doesn't even have a football program, which is a little bit surprising because they're joining the Pac-12, which is a dominantly, a very dominant football division, conference, whatever you want to call it, and they don't have football. It's kind of odd, and I don't know how this is going to affect rivalries and campus life on there, because I do know that when Gonzaga is in the conference that they're in, there are these rivalries before going to the Pac-12, because they're set to join the Pac-12 in 2026, and essentially, before they join the Pac-12, they're probably going to have they already have rivalries within their own conference. So joining the Pac-12, it's going to be very interesting. In fact, this entire collegiate year with NIL deals has been very interesting all around, not just for football, but mainly for every single sport. There's so many different teams that are changing conferences, so many different teams that are doing this and that. It's so weird, but and it's new. It's very, very new. It's a very new thing. So again, the Pac-12, they have 7 members in football, and now they have 8 members in basketball starting in 2026. And excuse me. Mountain West is also supposed to join. Mountain West left the Pac-12 last month. And the conference needed one more school to join in football to reach the 8-number minimum to qualify as an official football FBS conference. So that's another problem that it sort of brings, because now it's like, okay, you have your basketball team joining the Pac-12, but it's like now you need a football program to join the Pac-12 as well. Otherwise, you're not going to be recognized as a legitimate conference, which is a pretty big deal for a lot of those colleges. I mean, Colorado State, Boise State, Fresno State, San Diego State, I mean, they all love their football. Same with Utah State, but like Utah State not all that much, but they all love their football. And not being counted as an official conference, it'll definitely hurt a lot of the students at the school. But it's really odd how like they would choose a team that doesn't have a football program when they know that this was going to be a problem. Because like I just find that incredibly odd. Like sure, Gonzaga joining Pac-12 is awesome, but it's like now you have the problem where now you have to bring in another team that has a football program. And if you're like, why not just pick a team or like a school that is competent in both? Like, why did you have to just look at basketball? It doesn't really make sense to me when this was a problem, and they knew that this was a problem, and they knew that they might not even be considered legitimate if they don't have an 8th member in their football program. It's really, I don't know where the thinking comes from. But we do have a quote coming in from Pac-12 Commissioner Teresa Gold saying, "We are delighted to welcome Gonzaga into the Pac-12 as they embark with us on this incredible path ahead." So with Oregon State and Washington State still remaining in the Pac-12 due to being left out of the first round of conference realignment, that saw California and Stanford leave from the AACC. Oregon, UCLA, USC, and Washington ended up going into the Big Ten. And Arizona State, Colorado, and Utah exited for the Big 12. And so the doors still remain open for the Pac-12 to rebuild from the ground up, which I guess is sort of what they're doing. But from a college basketball perspective, because I've mainly been talking about like from the football perspective, because you have to look at both ways, though, when you're looking at these kinds of things. And from a college basketball perspective, like the addition of Gonzaga and the rest of the additions of programs like Mountain West, they're considered more exciting mid-major league in sports last season, and this gives the Pac-12 a good like launching point and a good set start to sort of rebuild. And the addition of Gonzaga is going to be even more notable because of the success of the program and just how successful Gonzaga has been over the last 2 decades. Like they've appeared in the NCAA tournament in every season the tournament was held from 1998 to 1999. And they reached the second weekend of the tournament 9 consecutive years. And Gonzaga's most recently reached the Final Four in 2021 before losing to Baylor in the national title game. I watched that game. That was a fantastic game, might I say. And so the other 4 members, Boise State, Colorado State, San Diego State, they all reached the NCAA tournament this past season, and the MWC has had recent success in the NCAA tournament, highlighted by San Diego State reaching the Final Four in 2023. So the Pac-12, in conclusion, in 2026, when they finally join, the Pac-12 is going to look like Oregon State, Washington State, Boise State, Colorado State, Fresno State, San Diego State, Utah State, and Gonzaga being the only team on there that is not part of football. Like literally, you'll be able to see like on the conferences and a lot of lists, it'll say Gonzaga and next to it non-football, which again is very, very, very odd. Like just so odd that they would want to add a team that doesn't have football in this mix. But I digress. And it's kind of funny how every single team in the Pac-12 is state, Oregon State, Washington State, Boise State, Colorado State. It's all got states in them. And it's just something to throw out there. But that's sort of that was the big news that that was sort of the bombshell that just dropped on everyone on ESPN, and sort of what to expect going into college basketball. And it doesn't really have to do with college football because Gonzaga doesn't do anything in football, which again is very odd. But let me know in the comments what you guys feel about this conference realignment. If you guys think that this is going to maybe either affect the program's success, affect the program and its rivalry games, because, I mean, let's face it, the rivalry games are probably one of the best things in college sports, period. And taking that away from them by completely changing where their conference, like completely changing their conference, it's like, how are they going to establish their rival? And what team would be the established rival of Gonzaga, if there even is one? But that's all that I really have on this first segment. So now we will go ahead and go into the second segment, where I talk about Kawhi Leonard and his sort of outlook and his like feeling on not having Paul George this coming season. There's an article that I have pulled up that I do want to go over, so I'll be right back after this short break.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign.
I wanna be the greatest. Everybody on the fake shit. I look around and feel like everybody is the fakest. I make this every day and I'm impatient, hoping one day I blow up from the basement. Statement, the top is so vacant. I don't hear shit that I think is amazing. Waiting for my day when I'm playing sold out shows for 1,000 faces. Hey, give me that crown, get in my way and to be put down. It ain't your place, all this my town. If I want that shit, then I'll get it right now. I'm losing it, the noose it fits, some losing shit, a stupid myth. You choose to live or choose to dip, you choose to fight or lose your grip and lose a gift. Oh.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind?
And we are back with the second segment of the GSMC Basketball Podcast, presented by the GSMC Sports Network. And in this second segment, we are going to be talking about what Kawhi Leonard has to say about Paul George's departure, how he feels about what's coming for the season, and some quotes that we have coming in from him according to this article. So before I begin, however, I do like to remind everybody that we love to hear what you guys have to say during the show, whether you guys have a hot take, whether you guys have a burning question, something you've just been dying to share. We are all ears. If you really want your comment or question to get noticed, then I recommend you use Super Chat. Just hit the $ below the chat box. Send in your comments. I have to scratch myself. Excuse me. Send in your comments and or donations that way. And if, let's say, you don't like Super Chat, that's totally fine. You could always use the link displayed below the ticker on every single show segment, gsmcpodcast.net, and then you could send in your comments and or donations that way. Either or really helps. Doesn't matter which one you do. And with that out of the way, we can go ahead and talk about Kawhi Leonard on losing Paul George. Obviously, this is a pretty substantial blow for the Clippers because they lost a very good second option. They also lost the one player that actually took them to the Western Conference Finals. Yes, it was Paul George that took them to the Western Conference Finals, not Kawhi Leonard. So figuring out exactly where the Clippers stand after losing Paul George is a little bit tough. And it's not something that people know for sure because it's just the same story with the Clippers. On paper, they look great, but aside from that, it's not looking good. It's really not all that good when you're looking at everything else coming in from the Clippers. It's really not all that. And I mean, yes, sure, the roster, it looks good, but then once they go into the postseason, it's just done. and they disappointed their fans, they disappointed everyone with this Paul George move, not just the move to let him walk, but also the move to acquire him, because everybody thought there was going to be a Battle of LA. It was advertised, and the Clippers just could not do it, even though the Lakers were able to do it. And what again, I'm going to say this because I say this a lot, but LeBron and his Lakers get more hate for winning a title in LA than the Clippers do for not even winning a single title with Kawhi and Paul George, which makes zero sense to me. But aside from that, Kawhi Leonard, according to this article, Kawhi Leonard made a solid statement about the after effects of Paul George leaving the Los Angeles Clippers. So while Kawhi Leonard is obviously still trying to recover from his injury that he sustained a few months ago, the Clippers star is expected to have limited participation in training camp. So for the upcoming season, this setback is challenging for him, given that he has also lost Paul George, who joined the 76ers in the recent offseason. Despite the concerns, obvious concerns for that matter, among fans about the impact of George's departure, Leonard remained optimistic about his ability to adapt. During the Clippers media day, he shared straightforward thoughts on losing his teammate. So, excuse me, Kawhi Leonard said, quote, I'm going to try to talk in his voice too. Well, he obviously made things easier on the court for players, but as far as my mental focus is going into the game, I don't feel like it's going to be harder for me personally. I didn't look at it for anybody I'm on the court with. I don't look at him to be my savior. That's what he said. So I have no idea what he means by I'm not looking for him to be my savior, because that's a little, I don't know, that's a little bit of an odd quote there. And he continues, I've taken my own role and my challenges that I have to face every game and go in there and try to dominate the game, he added. So, he does seem to be rather, I guess that's what you call optimism, because, we all know how Kawhi Leonard talks. He barely really shows all that emotion. And I guess this is sort of his way of saying that I don't need him. I don't know, because the way this was worded, it's sort of what really catches me off guard is when he said, I don't look at him to be my savior. We know you don't. Why you got to be like that? I'm confused. I don't know if that sounds odd, but let me know in the comments what you guys think, because that just, I don't know, I don't think that's really something that you just say, And let's see, the article continues with Kawhi Leonard updating his fans on his injury and his recovery. As we all know, he got injured in Game 3 of the first round. Once again, he always gets injured. It's really just unfortunate for him. But he said, quote, there's some stuff we can do or try to do to make it last. Leonard said, we'll see what happens. So the Clippers, unfortunately, they ended up losing, or fortunately, depending on where you stand, they ended up losing to the Mavericks. Before his injury, however, Leonard wrapped his regular season up averaging 23 points, 6 rebounds, and 3 assists. So it is possible that they could, they could still be a formidable team with Kawhi Leonard. That's totally possible, as well as James Harden, who I believe also mentioned his opinions on losing Paul George and how he feels the team is going to operate now that Paul George isn't there. And I don't have the exact quote from him, but I do know he said something along the lines of the offense running through him a little bit more so now than when they had Paul George. And to that, I completely understand. They're definitely going to rely on James Harden as the second option a little bit more than now that they don't really have Paul George on the roster, who was said to be the team's second option and was the second option on the team for the longest time. And I don't know if you're a Clippers fan, I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing, constantly having the offense ran through James Harden. And everyone sort of knows James Harden's bugaboos in the postseason, but now we're sort of starting to see those bugaboos earlier in the regular season as well, as his play has sort of decreased from what it was previously. And it's sort of like it's really a crazy downfall that I just didn't really expect coming in from James Harden. I mean, I usually expect it in the postseason. I did not expect his production to hinder all that much. But aside from that, I mean, I don't know how do you guys feel if having, the offense ran through Harden a little bit more? Because it's like, if this was Harden a couple years ago, everybody would be excited. But it's like now the opinion is a little bit mixed because not everybody is certain whether or not he can be 100%. And not everyone is certain, exactly how he's going to produce, how much he's going to produce, and how consistent he's going to be. And that's really a big problem with James Harden. Like, I understand the inconsistencies in the postseason because that's just a thing, but like the inconsistencies in the regular season is not really helping him in the slightest. And I really have no idea where this Clippers team is going to land. They could be a play-in team. I won't be surprised. They could win the championship. I'll be a little surprised. They could lose it all, and I still wouldn't be surprised. So most of the outcomes that I see for the Clippers are going to be disappointing outcomes. And then there's that, one-off miracle chance that they could just do the absolute absurd or do something completely out of left field and just make it all the way to the finals, which would be a killer to Paul George. I kid you not. If the 76ers don't make it to the finals with this lineup, and if the Clippers do, that is going to be a killer on Paul George's legacy. Like, it could really be a bad thing. But that's all that I really have to say about what Kawhi Leonard had to say about Paul George and his departure. Again, let me know in the comments what you guys feel about Paul George leaving. Do you guys think that the 76ers are finally going to get over the hump? Do you guys think that the Clippers are just going to lose out? Let me know in the comments what you guys think. But aside from that, we're going to go ahead and go into our break and then go into the third segment where I talk about some hot takes from users online, and I'm just going to go ahead and give some hot takes around that because, these hot takes are actually, they're hot takes. They're supposed to be egregious, and they're supposed to be coming in in all sorts of places and random thoughts. So I just thought it would be a pretty fun segment to do. And we'll be right back after this short break, so be sure to stay tuned.
Looking for your daily fix of sports talk without having to pay for it? GSMC Sports Network is available on YouTube. Just search GSMC Sports Network. Get your fix of daily sports talk shows on YouTube, absolutely free. NFL, college football, NBA, MLB, MMA, UFC, fantasy football, and so much more. GSMC Sports Network has shows running all day long, with new sports shows starting every 2 hours. Just like on your favorite cable sports channel, except GSMC Sports Network is absolutely free. Just search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube to catch one of your new favorite shows, like the GSMC College Football Podcast, Chip Shot Football Podcast, Hoops and Heels Women's Sports Podcast, GSMC Basketball Podcast, and so many more. Check it out for yourself. GSMC Sports Network, now available on YouTube absolutely free. Search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube right now.
And we are back with the third segment of the GSMC Basketball Podcast, presented by the GSMC Sports Network. And in this third segment, we are going to be talking about some hot takes coming in from fans. And these hot takes were taken from Court Coverage, the Instagram. You can go ahead and look at their Instagram. And he posted all of these users and their hot takes. And so I'll just be talking about them. And I'll give my opinions, whether or not this is really a hot take, how good of a hot take it is, how bad it is, this, that, and the other. So first one is coming in from, let me just go ahead and check his name. It's Itai Top. Again, all these users are going to be really difficult to pronounce, obviously. And his hot take is that Bronny James is going to start after 30 games this season. And quite frankly, no. No, absolutely not. I know that, LeBron is Bronny's father, And I know how much of an influence LeBron has over not just the Lakers organization, but also the roster and the rotations. And actually, no, not even the rotations he has control over. But I do know how much of an influence he has with LA and the franchise. But to say that Bronny is going to start after 30 games, no, absolutely not. Based off of what I saw in the Summer League, coming in from Bronny, he wasn't all that impressive. And I know that I'm the one that said the Summer League doesn't matter all that much. It's still only a fraction of a game that we've seen from Bronny at a very professional level. And if he's struggling against people in the Summer League, he might struggle against people in the NBA, like early on in the season. Again, I'm not saying that he's going to be bad for the entirety of his career. That's not what I'm saying. But it could be a struggle. Not to mention the fact that the team already, they have Dalton Connect, who's most likely going to be the sixth man. And then they also were able, the starting lineup has already been decided by JJ. And I see Bronny being more as a catalyst coming off of the bench as of right now than starting after 30 games this season. I feel like that is jumping the gun a lot. And assuming, unless Bronny just completely improved from the Summer League all the way up until this point, I don't really see that. And unlike his father, it's not like he was a crazy talent in high school. And he was obviously, talented. He was obviously incredibly talented, especially before he suffered, I believe it was cardiac arrest. And, he did have heart problems, and it's honestly a miracle that he's even in the NBA right now, still playing basketball, even after that sort of life-threatening catastrophe, life-threatening situation that he was in. And with that being said, though, I don't think he's going to start in after 30 games. I mean, I think that D'Angelo Russell, he's going to play well in the regular season. Austin Reeves is still going to be a huge favorite. He's also going to provide very solid three-point shooting, not to mention the height that comes with being, with D'Lo and Austin Reeves, as opposed to Bronny's height, because Bronny is rather undersized as a point guard. I mean, again, he could easily grow a couple of inches, obviously, over a span or a period of time. But he's 6'2", and I believe when you compare him to Russell, I believe Russell is listed as 6'3". I'm just gonna make sure. He's listed at 6'3". And I believe Austin Reeves, I'm just going to make sure that his height is also a little bit higher than Bronny. Hold on just 1 second. And yeah, Austin Reeves is 6'5". So it wouldn't really make sense to start a 6'2" point guard unless he's really good, which I don't really think is going to happen in the 30 games. So next hot take is coming in from Ori Garfinkel. Yeah, I know, that's his name. And this is probably the most egregious hot take I've ever heard in my entire life. Fred VanVleet is more skilled than John Stockton. Yeah, that is a hot take. And no, he's not. John Stockton is the leader in assists for a reason. He's gone to several finals appearances as the number 2 option. He didn't win the finals because, Michael Jordan. But, of course, aside from that, Fred VanVleet wasn't the first option on that championship team either. I believe he was actually a 6-man. Or maybe, he did have decent rotations on that Raptors team. But he wasn't the reason why the Raptors won. The reason why the Raptors won that year was because Kawhi Leonard was amazing and because Kevin Durant and Klay Thompson got hurt. And that's something that a lot of people really like to sweep under the rug. No, Fred VanVleet is not more skilled than John Stockton. John Stockton is one of the league's best point guards in the history of point guards. Fred VanVleet is not. And this whole skilled argument, I cannot stand it. I genuinely cannot stand it because how do you measure skill? Please tell me, how does one measure skill? It's flashiness. That's because I've seen so many people say that Giannis has no skill. 31 points per game, 14, around 12 maybe rebounds per game, 60-something% shooting from the field. That, according to fans, means he doesn't have skill. That doesn't make any sense. The skill argument doesn't make any sense. It needs to stop. It genuinely needs to stop, because this completely degrades so many players who put countless hours into the game, to improve and to be the best that they can be on the court. Oh my goodness. There are so many players that, people claim aren't skilled, but would absolutely destroy them in a one-on-one, destroy them in a 5-on-5 situation with no team. They would destroy them in a 1-on-5. I'm that confident. And it's it genuinely, it does not make sense to me. The skill argument, it really doesn't make sense to me. And a lot of people, they like to say that LeBron has no skill because he just, puts his head down and goes to the basket and gets layups. That takes no skill, according to some fans. And I'm just where is the argument in that? You're producing points. How can you not be skilled by producing points? So this skill argument is just atrocious. I cannot stand it. And no, Fred VanVleet is not more skilled than John Stockton. Next. Now, this one is actually a pretty good one, and I actually kind of agree with this being a hot take. The Chicago Bulls win under 24 games next season. Now, that is a very, very difficult task to do. I will say that. Now, the only reason why I say this is the best hot take so far is because all of the other ones were just absolutely egregious. And this one, I can see this sort of falling into place. However, I don't think it really will. They do have solid additions to the team that could work. It could work, but also they do have a lot of locker room drama between Zach LaVine and the GMs and the higher ups on the team, because it's every single year Zach LaVine there's trade talks about Zach LaVine, and there's Chicago wants to trade Zach LaVine, but the value that they want out of Zach LaVine is just not all that great. His trade value and the trade market for Zach LaVine is very, very confusing. And this ultimately not only just affects the Chicago Bulls' inability to trade them, but it also affects the relationship with their player, their best player as of right now. Not to mention losing DeMar DeRozan to the Sacramento Kings. So right now, this team does not really seem like a very competent team. I definitely do think they're going to be one of the losing teams this season, especially considering the fact that Zach LaVine tends to get injured a lot now and might not even play much during the regular season. So if that does happen, and even if it doesn't, I don't think this team has enough pieces in a top-heavy Eastern Conference team to match up and to actually become a play-in team. Then again, anything is possible, but they were a play-in team in large part with DeMar DeRozan and the consistencies that he would bring in the regular season. So, can't really say that I'm too high on the Bulls winning all that many games. However, I can't really say that the Bulls are going to win under 24 games, because winning under 24 games is a historic thing to do. It's really tough to do that. And I just don't really see the Bulls being that bad. That is Detroit Pistons level bad. That's not even Pistons level bad. That is bad. Hold on just 1 second, because I do want to check to see. Hold on just 1 second. Why does it take forever to look at records? Yeah, I mean, the Pistons, they were really, really bad last season. So were the Washington Wizards in the NBA last season. So it is possible that they could be that bad. But again, I just don't see it. With the way that with the roster and who they have on the roster, I don't see them being all that bad, especially considering the rest of the teams that are also going to be tanking in the Eastern Conference. Like, there's a lot of tanking teams in the Eastern Conference. It's really insane. Like, I mean, the Nets, they're on a full rebuild, so I have no doubt that they're going to try and be as bad as possible. The Wizards and the Pistons won't be able to help it. They're just bad. And then Charlotte seems to be, like, on a track for winning. They do seem to be on a track for winning. But the Hawks, you know, they also seem to be on a track for losing too. So it's like, I don't know. I really don't know, you know. I really don't know. And the final hot take coming in from Rico M is that the Warriors have the deepest team in the NBA. And again, I also say no to that because, quite frankly, I think the Knicks actually have one of the deeper teams in the NBA. I mean, they definitely used to. I'm not too sure exactly like how I feel about their roster now, but they do still have a chance to improve on that. But Kyle Anderson, I mean, most of the Golden State Warriors roster is composed of guards and forwards. Now, they do lack at the center position. Like, extremely they lack in the center position. They only have one player on their roster that's listed at center. And quite frankly, I mean, I don't really think that's a deep team. I don't think that's a deep team. If you only have one 7-footer on the roster, like, you're going to really be forced into a lot of small ball situations. And that's not a deep team. I'm sorry to say this, but it's like having only one center in the rotation. Granted, you know, you can put Draymond Green at center. You can also put some of the other players at center and make the adjustments that you need. But that also makes it difficult. Like, that just really makes the managing of this lineup a little bit difficult. There's way too many guards on this lineup. And not enough big men. There are not enough big men on this roster to make it considered a deep team, in my opinion. So I don't think they're the deepest team. Like, the rotation at the center position is going to be very much lacking, and that's really all that I have to say. And those are all the hot takes that we have for today. So now we will go ahead and go into the fourth segment where I talk about I look at D'Lo and reflecting on what he had to say about Darvin Ham, because there is an article that comes up, and I'm sure there's a lot of quotes coming up about D'Lo having something to say about his former head coach. So I'll be right back after this short break.
For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC. To access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows, available everywhere podcasts are found.
And we are back with the fourth segment of the GSMC Basketball Podcast, presented by the GSMC Sports Network. And in this fourth segment, we're going to be talking about D'Angelo Russell and his what seems to be rather unpopular opinions on Darvin Ham. And by unpopular, I mean like negative feelings towards Darvin Ham, because at least that's what the article says. But before I do, check it out is in the chat. Where is Texas State going? I believe they got an offer to join the Mountain West, but there was no report, confirming that, or there's no reports saying that that's exactly where they're going, but they did get an offer to there. So that's really all that I know about that. And there's no information on that ESPN revealed or that any other article has revealed as of late. But aside from that, let's go ahead and get into this segment, which is talking about D'Lo and his opinions and his comments about Darvin Ham. Now, I'm sure, as a lot of you guys know, Darvin Ham was a very polarizing coach. Like, there are a lot of instances where Darvin Ham did a lot of questionable things, and there are a lot of instances where a lot of the players being under Darvin Ham and a lot of the fans that were watching Ham with his rotations, with his substitutions, with his coaching methods, all of that stuff was bad. It wasn't all that great. And Darvin Ham was extremely unpopular with his time as the coach for the Lakers. And according to this article, D'Lo took multiple shots at former Los Angeles Lakers coach Darvin Ham. This article was posted at 1:37 a.m. So, Jesus, this guy was writing early in the morning. And so the Lakers, they're coming off a challenging season. They finished 47-35, landing the 8th seed in the Western Conference. D'Lo's team's hopes for a championship were completely destroyed in the playoffs as they were swept 4-0 by the Denver Nuggets. And following the disappointing end, the Lakers made some significant changes. And actually, no, this article is wrong. This article is not true. The Lakers did not get swept by Denver in the first round of the previous season, actually. The Lakers ended up winning one game, and then they ended up losing in 4. So they lost the first 3, then they won the 4th game, and then they ended up losing in game 5. But the year before that, they did get swept by the Denver Nuggets. So just wanted to amend that for any of you guys that was confused. So following the disappointing end, the Lakers made significant changes. They ended up firing Darvin Ham, which was about time, and they replaced him with former NBA player J.J. Redick, who had no prior coaching experience. So during Monday's Lakers Media Day, Russell didn't hold back in his criticism of their former coach, and he highlighted the differences between Ham and Redick, stating that there is now more structure under the new head coach. And D'Angelo Russell, at least according to Dan Woik from Dan Woik Sports, excuse me for that, Dan Woik Sports on X, formerly known as Twitter, he ended up tweeting out that D'Lo said the Lakers have been kind of winging it since his return to the organization, and he mentioned more structure being around this summer. So essentially, Darvin Ham was just putting a bunch of players together and saying, go win the game. That's what it seemed like. And honestly, that's really what it looked like. That's genuinely what it looked like with the rotations, because there are oh, my neck is so stiff. Okay, but there are some serious problems with Darvin Ham's rotation. He would put 2 players on the floor that couldn't shoot and couldn't provide spacing. And in a league where spacing is so important, it's like, what are you doing? What are you doing to yourself? It's just you're hurting the team. I must have slept on the wrong side of the bed. But Redick has brought in multiple coaches and staff members to focus on specific roles, something the star point guard felt was missing during Ham's tenure. In what seemed like another dig at Ham, Russell expressed his lack of trust in certain coaches last season, adding that the team also lacked a defensive structure. Kind of odd coming from D'Angelo Russell, who doesn't really play all that much defense, but I digress. So, D'Lo, apparently, according to this article, aims to earn defensive trust in upcoming Lakers campaign. And now D'Lo was kicked off his NBA career as a Laker after playing with 3 different teams. He was then traded back to the Lakers in 2022-2023, and he was fully committed to giving his best for the upcoming season, focusing on improvement and consistency. And during the Lakers Media Day, Russell shared his mindset going into the season. Quote, "For me, just keeping that maturity and that professionalism throughout the year. I don't know how you can..." God, my neck really hurts. Jesus. I don't know how being a professional is taking shots at the coach, but I digress. All power to you if that's what you want to do. And he's also said, quote, he's going to hold himself more accountable on the defensive end. Obviously, I know I'm capable, but when you get subbed out of the game for offensive, defensive possession, that shows where your trust is with your coach and your ability. So for me, just trying to gain that trust with the coach defensively and consistently I'm going to show up every day, practice game, preseason, whatever, knowing that coach has that trust in me as well," he added. Redick recently named the Lakers starting five. You guys can go ahead and watch that video on the GSMC Basketball Podcast if you guys are interested. But it seems like those are all the shots that were taken at Darvin Ham. And, quite honestly, it's what we all knew. It's what we as fans sort of all knew because it's sort of what we saw on the court. It's like Darvin Ham just looked lost out there. And it was really, really bad. Like the way that he was coaching and the way that he was organizing the team. And I could even make the argument that it was almost like as bad as how Doc Rivers ends up coaching. And I know that's like that's a very polarizing opinion, and I don't mean any disrespect, but I mean, I don't really agree with Doc Rivers and his coaching methods because, I mean, there are several times where I feel like Doc Rivers should take a timeout, but he doesn't take a timeout, and he just lets the team that he's playing against continue to go on a run. This was a problem in the 2020 postseason, which was a big reason why he was fired. And he's constantly been getting fired from every single team that he's played on, or not that he's played on, but every single team that he's coached for. Like, it's really, I don't know. I'm not a big fan of Doc. I'm really not a big fan of Doc. But aside from that, again, it's like this is stuff that was known with Darvin Ham. We already knew he struggled with his rotations. We already knew that it doesn't really seem like there was much structure on the Lakers. And I'm like, how on earth did this guy become a coach? Like, how? It's really, really confusing. But aside from that, but I digress. And what's really funny is that LeBron used to beat him so hard when he used to play against him. It's so funny. Like, honestly, LeBron should have been the coach for the Lakers that year. They probably would have gone farther. Who knows? But aside from that, that's all that I really have. I'm actually really looking forward to how JJ Redick is going to coach. Because who knows? Maybe he'll be an extremely pleasant surprise. And maybe this will sort of not only inspire other former players to be coaches, but also allow other teams to take risk on new coaches and new systems, because who knows, maybe they could work. And like as Michael Jordan would say, you miss 100% of the shots that you don't take. And if you're not taking shots and not trying to win by taking shots, then what are you doing? So that's sort of how I feel about JJ Redick and the situation around him being the coach, because I'm rather optimistic, because again, what he's proposing and the way that he seems to is approaching the game and the way that he's speaking about the game, it sounds like he genuinely knows what he's talking about. But of course, being a good player, being a decent player doesn't necessarily translate to being a decent coach. I mean, we saw that with Steve Nash and his time with the Brooklyn Nets, and that wasn't I don't know. You can make the argument that might have been partly the player's fault because Kyrie was a bit of a quack on the Brooklyn Nets, and you can make the argument that Kevin Durant and James Harden and all the drama and stuff that was going on ultimately affected that. But still, it's like you can't guarantee that a good player is going to be a good coach. And I'll leave it at that, and we'll see exactly what happens with JJ Redick in the next season. So now we're going to go ahead and shift the conversation back to the Golden State Warriors, because Draymond Green, season hasn't even started, and there's already problems. So we are going to be right back after the short break, and we're going to talk about Draymond Green getting into it with a reporter, apparently, according to this article. So, and a lot of other sources. So I'll be right back after this short break. And we are back with the final segment of the GSMC Basketball Podcast presented by the GSMC Sports Network. And in this final segment, we are going to be talking about Draymond Green apparently getting testy with a reporter, like, on media day. Now, the season hasn't even started, and Draymond is already making headlines with his attitude and things like that, because we all know that Draymond is a rather polarizing player, and one of, like, I guess you could say, not really a fan favorite, like, to a lot of fans. Like, there aren't that many people that really like him unless, you're Warriors fans, because, you're going to love him if you're a Warriors fans. But I personally don't really have a problem with him. I think he does his job just fine. He opens his mouth a little bit too much, and that ultimately does hurt the team. He does tend to have a temper problem, it looks like, but, not really going to touch on that all that much. But media day wasn't all that fun and games for Draymond, as he got into a back and forth with a reporter that lasted nearly 2 minutes, apparently. So the journalist comment, "People worry about you," and, went in a Q&A with Draymond Green. And, it's supposed to be, like, a lighthearted preseason event. It's supposed to, like, be, just answer the questions, see what's going on, get a feel for, like, how the season's going and things like that. But Green did not really seem to appreciate the comment. So he stopped the media member right in his tracks, and he asked him, "Why are they worried about me?" And he said, "I'm a successful black man in America doing incredibly well," he said. "What's to worry about me? There are way more people in this world to worry about than me. That's for sure." Yeah, and I say, "Oh no," because I'm like, okay, what in the world warrants this kind of commentary, right? Like, it's just a normal question. Like, people are worried about you. Like, mainly they're worried about how should I say this in a way that's rather nice. Like, they're worried about your mental state, if that makes sense. Like, if you guys understand what I'm saying, like, Draymond Green, it seems like the last few seasons, it seems like he's really been, for lack of a better term, crashing out. Like, there are instances where he gets so heated that he does this. There are instances where he gets so heated that he punches his own teammate. There are instances where he, like, expresses so much emotion and gets so angry, or this, that, and the other. And it's only normal for people to worry about him. I mean, I don't really think asking, a lighthearted question like that warrants this kind of response. Like, I don't know, maybe that's just me. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. But again, like, that is a very, very questionable thing to say after a simple "people are worried about you." Like, I mean, just answer the question. I don't know. Like, maybe I'm just only looking at this like how I would feel. And, I mean, if somebody asked me, like, I mean, a lot of people are worried about you, I mean, I'm not going to, like, shove it completely aside and just say all what Draymond said. I don't know. That's just me, however. So, I mean, it really doesn't look like that. And there is somebody in the chat saying, "Can you look at my NFL standings and mock order document?" And I don't cover the NFL, so if you really want someone to do that, maybe you should ask the host of the sports podcast. He's going to go live directly after my live, so maybe you can ask him to look at that if you're really interested in talking, because he does cover football as well. His name is TJ. He's a great guy. He actually covers every single sport, now that I think about it. And there's also a football podcast that happens before my own live segment, and he does NFL football, mainly covers NFL football. Doesn't really focus all that much on college, from what I know, but he probably wouldn't mind looking at what you have to show there. But I don't do that. I can't do that. I'm talking about basketball. So if you really want someone to look at your NFL standings, I recommend going to either one of those show hosts instead. So back to what I was saying about Draymond. So the journalist appeared to be attempting to ask Green how he was going to ensure his availability for this upcoming season. And after the 34-year-old had missed multiple games over the past couple years due to suspensions or due to injuries. And that could also be what he was talking about. I mean, I took it as like people are worried about you like and as in mental state and like the mental state of mind and like where you are in your state of mind, and more so than I thought, like, you know, actually like the suspensions that he gets for his behavior, and not to mention the injuries that he also tends to suffer. Green didn't look like he wanted to hear any of it, however, from this guy's initial statement, adding, "If you would have told me when I was 13 years old in Saginaw, Michigan, Saginaw, Michigan, without a pot to piss in, that you'd be sitting here and somebody would say they're worried about you, I would have probably told them they were out of their mind if I'd be sitting here and they'd be worried about me." That is so random of a quote. Like, I'm incredibly confused at this. I don't know. Let me know in the comments. Is this like, do you guys feel the same way? Because I mean, I'm confused. Like, he's just asking a standard question. There's no need to like bring up this, bring up that. Like, what are you on about, really? That's what I want to know. But the reporter tried, like, at least, you know, according to this article, the reporter tried to get out his point, but after around 120 seconds, Green reminded the man of all the games he's helped the Warriors win over the years before he officially put a halt to the conversation. "It's all about how you spin it," he said. "I love how you're trying to spin it, but it ain't my spin to it, player." No, he's not trying to spin anything. You're the one that's trying to spin things. Like, that really does not make any sense to me. I think the reporter was right to ask this question on people worried about Draymond. Now I am a little bit worried about Draymond, because it's like, what on earth is that kind of response? Like, what did he say? What did he do? What kind of face did he have that would warrant that kind of a response coming in from you? He just asked a normal question. Like, I don't know. Let me know in the comments what you guys think of that. I think that was just incredibly uncool coming in from Draymond. And that's, no, you just don't do that. I'm sorry. Like, I mean, I don't know. Let me know in the comments what you guys think. That's definitely not what I would have done in that situation. But that's all that I really have on this segment, and that's all that I have for the show. So thank you so much for tuning into the GSMC Basketball Podcast, presented by the GSMC Sports Network. Your support means a lot to us, so remember to subscribe to the show, leave a positive review. It really does make a difference. We also invite you to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram for more content and updates. And as usual, please remember to use the link in the description to get your comments recognized, or the link displayed below the ticker on every show segment. It is gsmcpodcast.net. And really helps the show, makes it much more interactive between myself and you guys. And also, if you don't want to use the link displayed below the ticker, you can also use Super Chat. You can send in your comments and or donations that way by clicking the $ below the chat box. Either or really helps the show. That's all that I have today on this podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in. And be sure to be ready for the WNBA playoff games that are going to be happening later tonight. They start at 7:30. I believe they're on ESPN Plus, maybe on ESPN2. I'm not entirely sure. Let me go ahead and check for you guys so that way you know exactly where to tune in for these WNBA games. And yeah, they're on ESPN2. So be ready to tune into those games. The Liberty, they're going to play the Aces in Game 2 at 7:30. And the Lynx are going to play the Connecticut Sun. The Connecticut Sun, actually, like I mentioned before, they ended up stealing a game from the Lynx, so they're going to play Game 2 still at the Lynx home court, but we'll see how it goes. They start at 9:30, and thank you so much for tuning in. I am your host, Nelson, and as always, take care.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired.